Hey everybody, Brittany here with another Gardening 101 video. This time I wanted to do tomato pruning 101 because my tomato plants are doing pretty well and they're starting to grow quite tall, as well as grow some suckers, which are what we are going to be pruning off. So I figured it was a very good opportunity to do this video. So right here you can see one of my slightly smaller tomato plants, although it is starting to develop some flowers. We're largely going to be taking off some of the lower branches here. Right here, just throw that away. There's a little one right down here. And then we'll take off this one as well. Taking off the lower branches helps in two ways. One, it promotes more growth up above, and two, it also helps prevent some blight. It probably won't stop it totally, but it definitely prolongs the plant going without getting any blight. Blight is a very common disease in garden plants, especially tomatoes, and it often comes from the soil. It's spores that are resting on the surface of the soil and end up being splashed up onto the leaves by rain. So by taking off the lower branches of the tomato plant, you're removing some of the leaves that the spores would be able to splash up onto. So right here is a larger tomato plant, and this is actually a cherry tomato plant. You can see that there are a bunch of cherry tomatoes developing right here. There are also some more flowers, which is really promising. As you can probably see, I have already taken off some of the lower branches, but I think I'll go ahead and take off two more. And if you're wondering why I'm just leaving these branches on the ground here, it's because that this is perfect nitrogenous matter. So I could go ahead and put that into my compost pile, or I could just leave it on the surface of the soil and let it decompose there, and it will eventually add nutrients back into my soil. So here we have a slightly larger sucker. So hopefully you can see that small little branch that's growing out of the elbow of these two branches. It's right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pinch that off. So you can see it right here. The reason we pinch off these suckers is because if we allowed it to grow longer, then as you can see, all of them would make the tomato bush very, very bushy, and that can be sort of a problem, largely because of disease. Again, blight. Once blight gets onto a tomato plant, it can spread from the lower leaves up to the higher leaves, and the closer the leaves are to each other, the more quickly the blight spreads. In addition, there are other diseases, insects. If an insect is attacking one of the leaves and there's a really close branch nearby, then the insect can hop from one branch to the other branch very easily. It also just really makes your tomato plant unmanageable. It makes it very heavy, so it's more likely to fall down. If you're staking it, it makes it very hard to get in there and get the tomatoes once they're ripe. And also, an important thing to remember, especially as your season goes on, is that if your tomato plant is putting energy into growing those suckers, then it's not putting energy into growing and ripening tomatoes. So with this tomato plant, any suckers that I've seen seem to be really, really tiny. I'm going to let them grow just a little bit longer, just so that it's easier for me to pick them off, just because right now they're so tiny. I can't really even get in there with my nail. Can still do some pruning with this tomato bush. As you can see, there's some areas where I did take off some lower branches, but it's gotten tall enough now that we can take off a few more. Sometimes you need to get your nail in there just to make sure that you don't end up peeling off a ton of the stem. And there you go. Ah, darn, that got a bit of the stem, but it's not too bad, so it should survive. This one is pretty similar. Not a lot of suckers, and none of them are really big enough for me to take off, but I can take off a couple of these lower branches. So here's a sucker on one of my tomato plants. I'll pull it away from the branch so that you can see it better. I don't want it growing longer because it'll make it too bushy. As you can see, it's coming out of that elbow between the branch and the main stem. I also don't want it taking energy away from my tomatoes, so I'll use my nail and I'll pop it off nice and easy. There you go. Here's a bigger sucker on another tomato plant. I let it go a little long. Again, just use my nail and pops right off. Here's my beast of a tomato plant. I'm going to start off lower here and taking off these lower branches. Occasionally I find that there are branches that try to grow right at the very bottom, so I just take those straight off. You can see right here that we have a sucker, so I'm going to just pinch it off right there, throw it away. And when we move around here, we can see that there is one more sucker up here. Pinch that off. And that's the end of my tomato plants. So they're all nicely pruned and de-suckered, so they should be much more civilized. So I hope that video was helpful to you, whether you're a first-time tomato gardener or maybe you've gardened a few years now. I know it took me a few seasons of crazy unruly tomato plants before I finally found out that I could do this. So thanks for watching, and if you did find this video helpful, please hit like and then subscribe for more awesome videos. Happy gardening!